last year, we were the #1 airline in Asia-Pacific for on-time performance, which is not necessarily the traditional impression of Philippine Airlines. So we're working very hard to make sure that we maintain that position, we maintain our on-time performance.
Philippine Airlines has just placed one of the biggest aircraft orders in its history. At the 2026 Farnborough International Airshow, the country's flag carrier committed to purchase 15 Boeing 787-10 Dreamliners, with options for 5 more, making it one of the largest commercial aviation investments ever made by the airline. On the surface, this looks like another airline buying new airplanes. But that's not what makes this story important. Airlines don't commit billions of dollars to aircraft that won't begin arriving until 2031, unless they believe demand will be there for decades to come. So this isn't just a fleet renewal. It's a long-term bet on the future of global air travel. A vote of confidence in the Philippine economy, and another signal that the Indo-Pacific is becoming the center of the world's aviation growth.
Riyadh Air has exercised options on previously ordered aircraft.
Among these are 28 787 Dreamliner options converted to firm orders, 20 of which will be the largest of the family, the 787-10.
But why did Philippine Airlines choose the Boeing 787-10? Why make this commitment now? And what does this decision reveal about where aviation and the Indo-Pacific is heading next? Let's take a closer look. Buying a new aircraft isn't like buying a new car. For an airline, it's a decision that shapes the business for the next 20 to 30 years. That's why Philippine Airlines didn't wake up one morning and decide to order Dreamliners. This decision had been building for years. According to PAL President Richard Nuttall, most of the new Boeing 787-10s will replace the airline's aging Boeing 777-300ERs and Airbus A330-300s as they reach the end of their second 12-year operating cycle during the 2030s.
So we're working very hard to make sure that the premium products in line with best in class. We're overhauling, we're retrofitting our regional narrow bodies.
For any airline, there comes a point where keeping older aircraft becomes more expensive than replacing them. Maintenance costs rise, fuel efficiency falls behind newer designs, and operating economics become harder to justify. But replacement was only part of the strategy. PAL also expects international demand to keep growing over the next decade, particularly on routes to North America, Australia, the Middle East, and parts of Asia. Some of the new aircraft will support that expansion, while others will operate on high-demand regional routes where airport slots are becoming increasingly scarce. Then there's another factor that often goes unnoticed. Cargo. Richard Nuttall explained that cargo capacity played a major role in selecting the 787-10, saying, "Cargo is becoming more and more important for us." That's not unique to Philippine Airlines. Across the industry, airlines are placing greater value on aircraft that can carry both passengers and high-value freight efficiently. In today's market, a wide-body aircraft isn't just transporting people. It's also moving e-commerce shipments, electronics, pharmaceuticals, and time-sensitive cargo across continents. So this wasn't simply about replacing older airplanes. It was about preparing Philippine Airlines for the next phase of global aviation. But if replacement, growth, and cargo were the goals, why did Boeing win? So, why did Philippine Airlines choose the Boeing 787-10? The answer wasn't simply that it was Boeing's newest aircraft. It was that the Dreamliner offered the best balance between efficiency, capacity, cargo capability, and long-term operating economics. For airlines, every percentage point of fuel savings matters. According to Boeing, the 787 family consumes up to 25% less fuel and produces up to 25% lower carbon emissions than the aircraft it replaces, thanks to advanced composite materials, new generation engines, and more efficient aerodynamics. That translates into lower operating costs over decades of service. But fuel efficiency was only part of the equation. The 787-10 is the largest member of the Dreamliner family. It can seat around 330 to 340 passengers in a typical two-class configuration, or up to 375 passengers in a high-density layout, while also providing significant cargo capacity for long-haul routes. That combination allows airlines to carry more passengers and more freight on the same flight, an increasingly important advantage as international travel and air cargo continue to recover. Passenger experience also played a role. The Dreamliner is known for larger windows, improved cabin pressurization, higher humidity levels, and a quieter cabin. Features that have helped make it one of the most popular long-haul aircraft in commercial service. Boeing Commercial Airplanes President and CEO Stephanie Pope called the agreement an important step forward in our partnership, highlighting the nearly 80-year relationship between Boeing and Philippine Airlines. And PAL isn't alone in betting on the Dreamliner. Airlines including ANA, Japan Airlines, United Airlines, American Airlines, Qatar Airways, Etihad Airways, and Air Canada continue expanding or operating large 787 fleets because the aircraft has proven itself across a wide range of international markets. For Philippine Airlines, the decision wasn't about buying the newest airplane. It was about choosing the aircraft that best matched its long-term network strategy. But this order comes at an important moment, not just for Philippine Airlines, but for Boeing itself. It was another sign that airlines are planning far beyond the post-pandemic recovery. Over the past several years, Boeing has faced production slowdowns, certification challenges, supply chain disruptions, and intense competition in the global aircraft market. Today, however, airlines aren't just replacing aging fleets, they're preparing for decades of future growth. That's why the timing of this announcement matters. The agreement was unveiled at the 2026 Farnborough International Air Show, where some of the world's biggest airlines, leasing companies, and aerospace manufacturers gathered to announce new aircraft and engine commitments. Riyadh Air expanded its Dreamliner order, SMBC Aviation Capital placed major aircraft orders, and Indigo signed one of the largest engine agreements in commercial aviation history, underscoring renewed confidence across the industry. But one region stands out above all others: the Asia-Pacific. According to the International Air Transport Association 1ATA and Boeing's long-term market outlook, Asia-Pacific is expected to remain the fastest-growing aviation market over the next 2 decades, driven by expanding middle-class populations, rising tourism, and increasing demand for international travel. That makes Philippine Airlines' decision more significant than it might first appear. For Boeing, winning an order from one of Asia's oldest flag carriers isn't just another commercial success. It's another indication that airlines across the Indo-Pacific are investing in the next generation of long-haul aviation. And that's a trend Boeing is counting on. But Boeing wasn't the only company making a long-term bet. The Philippines was too. This is where the story becomes much bigger than Philippine Airlines. Because this isn't just an investment in airplanes, it's an investment in connectivity. Every new long-haul aircraft gives an airline more flexibility to open new routes, increase flight frequencies, and connect more people, businesses, and markets. For an archipelago like the Philippines, that's especially important. The country relies heavily on international aviation, not only for tourism, but also for trade, investment, education, and the millions of overseas Filipino workers who travel between the Philippines and destinations around the world. According to Boeing and Philippine Airlines, the new Dreamliners will strengthen services to North America, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the Middle East, markets that represent some of the airline's most important international connections. PAL Chairman Lucio C. Tan III said the Boeing 787-10 will strengthen our medium and long-haul fleet, allowing the airline to modernize its operations while offering greater efficiency and an improved passenger experience. But the benefits extend beyond the airline itself. Better air connectivity can make it easier for tourists to visit, businesses to invest, exporters to reach overseas markets, and Filipino communities abroad to stay connected with home. While aircraft alone don't create economic growth, they provide the capacity that growing economies increasingly depend on. And that's why this announcement matters. Because in today's Indo-Pacific, connectivity has become a form of strategic infrastructure. And that leads to the next chapter of this story. Because aviation is no longer just about transportation. It's becoming part of regional strategy. One thing is already becoming clear. Philippine Airlines isn't planning for next year. It's planning for the next generation. The first Boeing 787-10s won't begin arriving until 2031. That alone tells us this isn't a short-term response to today's market. It's a long-term investment based on where the airline believes demand will be a decade from now. According to PAL President Richard Nuttall, most of the new aircraft will replace aging wide-body jets, while the rest will give the airline room to grow as international travel continues expanding.
The airline's gone through various views on what it is, and if you look at our historic fleet, it has a variety of configurations, and some of it's a little bit messy and it's challenging operationally when you swap aircraft and they've got different numbers of business class seats or whatever.
But this story isn't just about one airline. Across the Philippines, aviation infrastructure is entering a new phase. The modernization of Ninoy Aquino International Airport, the continued expansion of Clark International Airport, and other airport development projects are all designed to increase capacity, improve efficiency, and support future passenger and cargo growth. That's a pattern we've seen elsewhere. Singapore, Dubai, and Doha didn't become global aviation hubs overnight. They invested years before demand reached its peak, expanding airports, modernizing fleets, and building the infrastructure needed for future growth. The Philippines isn't trying to copy those cities, but it is making its own long-term investments at a time when the Indo-Pacific is becoming the fastest-growing aviation market in the world, according to forecasts from IATA and Boeing. Whether those investments translate into greater connectivity, stronger tourism, or expanded international business will depend on many factors. But one thing is certain: airlines don't order aircraft that won't arrive until the next decade unless they're planning for the decade after that. So, what could happen next? What happens next? So, where does this lead? No one can predict exactly how Philippine Airlines or the aviation industry will evolve over the next decade. But based on today's announcement, 3 realistic scenarios are already taking shape. Scenario 1: the fleet gets bigger. If international demand continues to grow as forecast, Philippine Airlines could exercise its options for 5 additional Dreamliners, expanding the order from 15 to 20 aircraft. That would make this one of the largest fleet modernization programs in the airline's history. Scenario 2: the Philippines becomes more connected. The new Boeing 787-10s are expected to strengthen PAL's long-haul network across North America, Australia, Japan, South Korea, and the Middle East. As more aircraft enter the fleet, the airline could add frequencies on busy routes, improve scheduling flexibility, and potentially explore new long-haul destinations if market demand supports them. For passengers, businesses, and overseas Filipino communities, that would mean stronger links between the Philippines and some of the world's most important economic regions. Scenario 3: a new era of Philippine aviation history shows that when one major airline begins modernizing its fleet, competitors rarely stand still. As travel demand grows, carriers such as Cebu Pacific, AirAsia Philippines, and other operators may continue investing in newer aircraft, expanding international networks, and improving operational efficiency to remain competitive. At the same time, airport modernization projects and rising passenger demand could reinforce one another, creating the conditions for another phase of growth in Philippine aviation. One thing is already becoming clear: this isn't simply about replacing older airplanes. It's another sign that airlines are making long-term decisions based on where they believe the world. And the Indo-Pacific is heading next. One airplane doesn't change a nation, and even 20 airplanes won't. But what they represent can. Throughout history, some of the world's most successful airlines made their biggest investments long before the results became visible. They committed billions of dollars because they believed demand would grow, economies would expand, and global connections would become even more important. That's what makes Philippine Airlines' decision worth paying attention to. On the surface, it's a fleet renewal. But beneath that headline lies something much bigger: a belief that international travel will continue to grow. A belief that the Philippines will remain deeply connected to the global economy. And a belief that the Indo-Pacific will continue to shape the future of commercial aviation. The first of these aircraft won't even arrive until 2031. That means this decision isn't about today's market. It's about the world Philippine Airlines expects to see in the 2030s and beyond. Whether those expectations prove correct will depend on economic growth, tourism, competition, fuel prices, and countless other factors that no airline can fully control. But every major fleet decision begins with the same question: what kind of future are we preparing for? For Philippine Airlines, the answer is clear. They're preparing for a future where the Philippines is more connected, where long-haul travel continues to expand, and where the Indo-Pacific remains at the center of global aviation. Because airlines don't spend billions preparing for yesterday. They invest in the world they believe is coming next. And perhaps that's the real story behind this order. It isn't the airplanes, it's the future they're intended to serve.